Real voices, real journey.
The Anglo Heartline.
Welcome today to Anglo's podcast, and I'm delighted today to be joined by two of our exceptional students. I've got here Miss Cassandra, who scored top in the world in IGCSE mathematics. I'm also joined by Miss Mew, who also scored top in the world in IGCSE art and design. Anyway, they're here to share their perspectives on their subjects, on their life in general, and on how they are capable of achieving such great results and what their secrets are, if there are any secrets. Anyway, most importantly, we're not here to listen to me, we're here to listen to them. We're here to listen to what they have to tell us about their journey at Anglo and about how they made sure they achieved. Anyway, I've got some questions to start with. I'm going to divide these questions up. First of all, I'm going to ask general questions, and then I'm going to ask specific questions. So I'm going to ask, as I've already briefed you on, some questions about your art journey and some questions about your maths journey. And then there'll be some general questions. But let's start with a general question, if you like. Can you tell me about yourselves and what you enjoy doing outside school? So this is not something to do with your subject. If you'd like to start, Mew.
So my name is Mew and I'm an Anglo student. I'm currently studying in JC1, and what I like to do outside school is watching animations and also playing my guitar at home. I like animations as a kid because it actually expands my creativity and also see different perspectives about this world. And I also like to play guitar because guitar helps me to relax myself whenever I'm stressed from school and anything, and it also allows me to express myself.
Okay, I'm going to follow that up and ask you, do any of these outside hobbies and activities actually help you with your studies?
It not quite, but it helps me to relax myself and also keep myself distance away from things that makes me stress a bit, and also comes back on track on what I need to focus on.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up again now. Just one more question. What would your friends say about you?
My friends would say sometimes I'm very quiet in class. I don't really talk. I would stay quiet and just listen to the teachers teaching in class, and I would take some notes. But then when I started to get to know people better, or people started talking to me, I would be very talkative.
Okay, fantastic. Cassandra, what about you? What do you enjoy doing outside of school?
For me, I'm from JC1, the same as Mew. And for things I like to do outside of school, I like to do art actually, because it actually helps me relax. And I like listening to music, creating music. And one thing I value a lot is spending time with my friends and family, because it brings me a lot of joy.
Fantastic. So again, another question. What would your friends say about you? Are you all study, or are you a mixture of study and fun?
I would hopefully think they find me funny. They also think I'm very passionate, because when I find something I'm interested in, I try my best to go pursue that. But when I'm with my friends, I'm also very loud, and I can be quite the troublemaker sometimes.
Okay, well, I'm now going to ask another question here, and it's about you as your reaction. So you took these exams last year, so obviously you must have known you'd done quite well. So what was your reaction when you found out you had achieved a top in the world in maths?
So when the results came out, I was sitting with a group of friends in a circle, and we were all gonna open our results at the same time. And I was obviously excited to see that I scored full marks, but of course, I was preparing for this really hard throughout the months that I've been studying for it, and it was definitely expected for me.
You expected it, wow, okay. So who was the first person you told? You were in your circle of friends, okay, they all saw that, but who was the first person you told outside that circle of friends?
My mom and dad.
So you told your mum and dad, and how did they react to it?
They were obviously very proud of me, and they congratulated me for it.
Okay, fantastic. And for you, did you expect to get top in the world, or after you took your exams, or was it a surprise?
I was not expecting at all. Ever since I was a little kid, I really like to draw, and not much people really At first, my drawing was not that good. So like when I got the results at first, I actually just finished my Chinese class and I was trying to go to the art room because I want to continue doing my work. And then I saw my teacher. She was in front of the door and she was clapping her hands and saying congratulations. And I don't know what's going on. I was so confused. And she told me, "Oh, you know the results, right?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Oh, you got top in the world for IGCSE art and design." I was so happy. I also didn't expect it. So I quickly called my parents and they were also shocked at the same time.
Shocked and delighted, I imagine. Okay, now this is a question. I'll start with you, Mew. You just mentioned that you didn't feel you were naturally gifted at art, but of course, many students believe that you have to be naturally gifted and talented in order to get top in the world. What would you say to them?
As I said before, at first my drawing was not good at all. Like I actually learned through my experience and what the teachers taught me in school. Because at first my drawings, people can't even see what am I drawing at first. And I always try to improve it by looking through feedbacks and getting advices from my teachers. And the advices from my teachers that I receive are really good, so I would try to practice more and more often. So these achievements are, in my opinion, these achievements are not for only natural gifted people. They are for people who actually work hard to achieve their goal.
Did you ever doubt that you'd made the right choice, though, during this journey?
I never doubted because I actually really love to do art ever since I was a little kid, ever since when I was kindergarten 3 until now.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Cassandra, the same with you. As I said, people think that you either can do maths or you can't do maths. So there's plenty of people who say, oh, well, I'm just not a maths person. What do you say to that?
I actually hated maths in secondary 1, but then I grew to love it because I had the right teachers and I found that it was actually quite interesting. But it is definitely not just for talented people. As Mew said, you have to be pretty hardworking to achieve what you want to achieve. And I think that's the most important part, is to find a goal and work towards it.
So some people will think, well, I actually think that they were very good anyway, they're just being very modest. But can you tell me an area that you struggled in maths for a while and obviously you overcame that struggle, but can you tell me one of the areas that you struggled on?
I definitely struggled a lot with trigonometry at first, because like memorizing the unit circle and then SOHCAHTOA, I was really confused at first, but then I try to use the resources around me, like asking teachers, watching videos online, and I think that helped me a lot.
So you think people would be quite surprised when you tell them that you struggled at some things? They would not believe you, but the truth is you did struggle, yes?
Yeah, a lot.
And what about you, Mew? Did you struggle at anything?
I struggle a lot in painting at first because at first I don't know how to use oil painting at all, that is part of the curriculum in IGCSE art. So I have to quickly try to adapt to it, like as fast as possible, and also try to learn through it. And also with the help of my teachers, they're really helpful.
So as you were telling me just now, maths wasn't always your favourite subject, but obviously you still got good at it. So is there anything, any particular thing you get satisfaction from when you study maths?
I think people can relate to this a lot. It's when you're doing a really hard question and you're spending hours and hours of work on it and you finally get the answer, which I think kind of validates the time you took and the amount of time you studied for it.
So actually problem solving you find very satisfying.
Yes.
And what would you say your strength is? Obviously you told me what your weakness was in the past, but do you actually believe that you've developed strengths in maths now?
A lot of my friends have told me that I absorb information really quickly. So if a teacher is teaching a new topic, it doesn't take me long to get it.
Okay, and tell me, was there this transformation, obviously we talked about you transforming yourself in one sense, but was it any particular experience that you had that changed your attitude, or was it a teacher maybe?
It was my teacher, Mr. Sean. He taught me in Sec 3, and he made the class fun, and I realized just how interesting math really was.
So tell me now, maths is about problems. Talk me through what happens when you have a difficult problem. How do you overcome the challenges? How do you work your way through it to reach a solution? Obviously, you're not someone who gives up. So what kind of things do you do? If you, first of all, think, actually, I don't know what to do here. So how do you work your way through?
So first, I try to see what topics the question is or what topics it combines. Then I try to look at all the keywords. A lot of the time, I misread the question. I leave out some important information that actually helps me solve the problem. So those are usually the culprits to why I can't solve the problem. But if it truly is just a really difficult question, I take some time doing other questions, because I heard about this phenomenon where if you're stuck on a question and you go to the next question, that question that you were struggling with is actually, like, your brain is actually trying to solve it while you're doing other questions. And I think it actually works, for me at least.
So you've obviously, you're using a technique that you feel is very useful for you. But tell me, you obviously do a lot of work independently, obviously. Can you remember the first time you managed to do something independently without relying on the teacher in the class in that sense? Can you remember a time when suddenly you realised you didn't need the teacher's input and actually you were able to actually move forward and be very successful?
It was in Sec 1 when I hated maths, because I used to sit with a group of friends and they would distract me all the time, and I didn't really listen to the teacher. And then when SA1s came, I realized, oh man, I should have listened, and I had to study all the topics that I missed out on in a short period of time. But I managed to do it, and as I was practicing some problems with the given topics, I realized that for each question, there is a specific way that you can solve them. And if you just take that and apply it to different questions, you realize that it's all quite the same.
So think about all these experiences. How does this affect your way you think about learning?
It definitely tells me not to give up, and that there's always resources out for you to find on your own. If a teacher is not available, you can always go online. You have a ton of AI chats that you can open and just ask them, but it's always important to double check because they can get stuff wrong.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Cassandra. Now, Mew, you told me you've always been interested in art, but you also said you struggled with art.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to ask why. Why has art always fascinated you? Why? What is it about, for example, art and design that you enjoy so much? Because obviously you told me you want to be a graphic designer.
Yes.
So tell me.
Actually, when I first started art and tried drawing, it's actually because I watched this one Disney film that's called Tangled, and I really enjoyed the movie itself. And when the movie finished, like, it's still stuck inside me, and I really wanted to continue. So what I did was I tried to draw the character out itself, which is the character called Rapunzel, and that's when I found myself that I really like to draw, and it helps me to my imagination to go wild, and it will come true, and it makes me feel like this movie is still continuing. It still have an end just right there. So that's when I found out myself I really like to draw. I like to let my imaginations go wild and create things that wasn't part of a film, or it wasn't there in the beginning.
So that's the first thing that sort of drew you towards art, yes?
Yes.
So what inspires your work now?
What inspires my work is the things that are inside one scene. For example, like the scene where Flynn Rider and Rapunzel, that they're in the same boat and they were looking at the lanterns. I really love that scene. That's when I actually started to paint with acrylic paints, and I tried to make it look like on a canvas that my mother bought for me. And that's when I started to find out myself I like to paint also, not just by using graphites, but I also like to paint and try other things else.
So you drew inspiration from the first animation that you
Yes.
saw, and then since then you've continued to be inspired by basically experimenting with different materials
Yes.
and media. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so which artists inspire you?
The artist that inspires me the most is Van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh, because he's an amazing painter. He paints in a way where like every single angle that you look have it actually gives you different meanings in every single angles, and you can get many different perspectives, and that's why I really love him.
Okay, well, of course, it's not well on Van Gogh's personal or private life, but let's talk in general about, let's say, the feelings that art inspires. Now, art is all about feelings. So, can you tell me what feelings your art inspires?
Actually, the things that like inspires me is um, from what I usually draw and paint. It actually comes from the feelings of myself inside. There are clutters. Sometimes there's what I see in people like beauty. That's why I drew some. If we see in my portfolio, I would draw a lot of flowers, which represents beauty in people, how they grow up as from a child to an adult. And I like to express myself in a way to let other people see what I am actually trying to mean and what I'm trying to tell the people, the audience in front of me.
Okay, now I've got a question which is relevant to both of you, but I'll start with you, Mew, if you like, if that's okay. What have you, art? There's a lot of feedback in art, and some of the feedback can be quite critical, can't it? So,
Yes.
how have you learned? What have you learned from receiving feedback, and how have you received it? What was the difficulties or challenges of the feedback?
Actually, I would start to listen to it first and see what they see in their own angle. Because as I said before, like everyone's perspective in art, they have a different meaning behind them, and what people see sometimes can be different from what I want the audience to see. So when I receive the critics, I would listen to it and find other things to make the meaning of my artwork that I want people to see and make it more better and make it communicate to the audience that this is what I want them to see, and this is what I want them. This is what I want to communicate to them.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, feedback, of course, is important in all learning. So let me talk to you, Cassandra, about feedback in general. How do you deal with feedback that isn't necessarily positive? Let's say your teacher is looking at your work and they're critical of what you've done, or critical. Certainly in maths, they may actually be looking at your work, and the feedback might actually say, actually, you were wrong here. You didn't follow the correct process. So how do you deal with this criticism, and what happens then?
I've received a lot of criticism about my handwriting because it can get messy sometimes. So when I'm writing my own notes, I don't mind it being messy because I'm going to be the one reading it. But I have to make sure that in examinations or unit tests that I write legibly so I don't stress the teachers out too much. And aside from that, maths, there can be multiple ways to approach one problem. But most of the time, for me, what I would suggest others to do to kind of strengthen the way they approach a problem is to actually look at the marking schemes, because it's basically giving you like the correct way to answer, and you can try to find a topic that you're struggling with and compare multiple answer keys and see which steps are the same, and you can apply that.
So that's interesting. What you're saying is that in order to, if there are difficulties or challenges in terms of the feedback, there's an easy way to see what the teacher's trying to talk about by going to the end product, if you like, and looking at marking schemes and seeing what actually the markers are seeing.
Yeah.
And what is required. That's very interesting. Now this comes to my second question, Mew, and it's about resilience. Do you think resilience is very important when you study art?
Yes, because I actually, as I said before, my artwork at first was not good at all. constant practice, a lot of practice, and like many different kinds of works and challenges that comes from my teachers. They would provide me a lot of information, advices. That is when I have to actually realize hard work really pays off the achievements I really wanted.
Right. Well, again, resilience. Obviously, that's very important for you. But explain to me what resilience means for you, specifically, let's say, to do with maths to start with, but in general, in terms of studying.
For me, it just means not to give up and keep trying your best. One of my teachers actually told me if you want to study engineering or anything that is like a high study workload, you do have to be resilient because that's the only way you can kind of get through it. And I think it is really important when it comes to math.
Now I'm going to ask something which reaches, let's say, the heart of one of the issues that we have to talk about, and that's it's about you as people outside school, outside the classroom. Now, obviously, your art, your abilities in maths, your general abilities in school are not just about what you do in school. So can you tell me, how do you make sure that you are willing and able to challenge yourself outside school? Because one of the big issues, of course, is that education doesn't end at the end of the day. It continues into your own time. So how do you make sure that you are able to study outside school and that you are motivated to study outside school? I'll start with you, Cassandra.
So I think breaks and rests is really important, especially if you're dealing with a lot of exams or unit tests. So whenever I come back from school, I try to give myself a break before I dive into any homework. And I do think that having hobbies outside of school is definitely worth it, and it can help you relieve stress. And I feel like separating academics from your personal life is a really big thing that you should focus on. And as for motivation, sometimes when it's exam season and I can't be bothered to study alone at home, I try to contact one of my friends or like a group and go study outside together.
So I know a lot of your artwork has to take place at home because you have to develop your ideas. So how would you give advice to other students about the importance of studying in your own time? Because one of the differences between maybe you and Cassandra and other students is your ability to motivate yourself outside school hours to continue your studies, knowing that it's important outside. As I said, well, what would your advice be?
As what Cass has mentioned, breaks are really important because it avoids you from getting overwhelmed and forget the most important things that you have to do. As for me, whenever I got home, I would take around 5 minutes break and I would start doing my artwork first for the first few minutes. And while I finish the first few minutes of my artwork, I have to divide my time into studying. After I finish studying and understand the concepts of what my teachers have told me during class time, I have to go back and do my work again. So as an art student, dividing your time and looking through how much you have is really important. You have to check whenever you have free time. If you're very exhausted, you should take a break. If you have time to work and you still have the energy left, you should try to work a bit. Even though there's a little progress, it can actually have a really big result in the end.
Another thing I've noticed, obviously, you are self-motivated and self-driven. So how do you explain to other students, let's say, how you get motivated to do things, even if initially you weren't successful at them? Because too frequently we tend to give up when we're unsuccessful. So how do you generate that level of motivation to keep trying? So for example, Cassandra, you told me sometimes the problem's too difficult, but you continue to motivate yourself, you try something else. So anything else that we can give, some advice maybe or guidance to students?
I feel like it's not about motivation, it's about discipline. You can't rely on motivation alone because I know a lot of us have procrastination issues, and if we're just gonna study or do stuff when we want to, it's not gonna happen. So I think what the most important thing is to actually push yourself to do something even when you don't want to do it. And I think that's the biggest factor for you to succeed.
Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, well, obviously we're talking about two different subjects. You could say two subjects on opposite sides of the spectrum in many ways if I were looking at learning. But obviously you both achieved the same outcome. So what do you think successful students have in common, regardless of which subjects they study? Mew, if you'd like to share what you think all successful students have in common, or your thoughts about that.
In what I have experienced and what I have heard from Cass, we both have shared one thing, the same thing, which is working hard and always try to go up to our teachers for advices and try to develop ourselves and try to improve ourselves every single day.
Okay, so Cassandra, you mentioned discipline, yes? What about perseverance? What role do you think perseverance might play in your own development?
I think it's kind of something similar to each other. I feel like to truly succeed, you have to have a combination of a lot of things. But I feel like both are important.
Now, both of you might have been hard on yourselves at the moment, but if you could meet a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give them? What advice would you give them, Cassandra?
Never give up.
Never give up. That's your advice. What about you, Mew? What advice would you give them?
Keep working, don't give up.
Again,
Same.
keep working. So that's about perseverance, that's about discipline as well. Okay, and obviously both of you don't look like you've ever been overwhelmed by your work, but maybe you have. So what should students do when they feel overwhelmed? Because when they're overwhelmed, they might decide, I can't do this. So what did you do when you felt overwhelmed? It was too much for you. What did you do?
I feel like it's definitely okay to take a break from studying, maybe have a day off on the weekends to just relax and not do any homework. And definitely returning to your hobbies and trying to relax is one of the best things you can do. Maybe go for a walk outside, listen to some music, play games, anything to get your mind off studying.
That's very sound advice. Now, Mew, I'm going to ask you something as well. Is there any lesson you hope some students can take away from your journey? Because they're listening to you on the podcast. Any lesson you think is a very useful lesson you can share with them?
Personally, I don't really like this subject also, but I would say math, because it is actually one of the most important subjects. Even if we think and see the problems that we're doing right now in class, we may think like, this is not really important, why are we doing this in class? But actually, if we learn to art is not just by drawing or painting. There's also math involved. We have to calculate the canvas size, think how we're actually gonna draw it in this size, or the head size of the person. There's a lot of things going on. Also in real life, there's a lot of things that we need to do. It actually involves math a lot.
Wow, okay, right. So maths is almost a foundation of all study, all learning. And importantly, we have to always go back to the source, if you like, yes. Okay, anyway, thank you both for sharing your perspectives with me today. You have shared information which I know is very useful for everybody listening on your own journey. You've shared information on your perseverance. You've told me about how disciplined you have to be and you've shared information and experiences about how you have to be independent in your learning experiences as well. And you've shared that you're willing to learn new things even when it is difficult. So what I can say is we've got two young people here, both top in the world, both from different subject perspectives, but both sharing the same, let's say, same ways of being successful. Very important. So both of them have demonstrated what can be achieved when you take responsibility for your learning and when you embrace challenges, and when you keep going, as they kept saying to me, even though things get difficult. So on behalf of everybody at Anglo, I'd like to thank you for sharing your perspectives on your study. I'd like to once more congratulate you on getting top in the world, and I look forward to you continuing to shine as students and in the future in any future careers that you choose. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Real voices, real journey.
The Anglo Heartline.